Welcome back! So, 10.0.5 is almost upon us, and today I'm going to take you through everything you need to know, including the big features and also some of the lesser known ones. First up, the trading post. We've already covered this in length, but the TLDR is that it is a monthly rotating vendor that uses a currency called Trader's Tender. If you have Dragonflight on your WoW account, then you will get 500 Tender a month just by logging in and being there. Now you can earn 500 more by doing tasks, objectives, and then this can all be redeemed for various cosmetics. Now you can see this bar of essentially your progress through the various different things you can do. If you fill that up, it does seem that you get an additional monthly reward at the end, the first one being a pretty cool looking mount. Now, being monthly, it does mean that this system kicks off 1 week after the patch drops, meaning the start of February, with the shop rotating every month. Though, don't worry, items are not gone forever. They will eventually rotate back in, but if there is something that you really do want to buy but cannot afford within any given month, you can freeze one item, which will prevent it from going away once the month ticks over. So the TLDR is, do stuff, earn cosmetics. Now, from what I can tell thus far, the pacing of the objectives does not seem slow at all, and they cover a wide host of gameplay activities, so many of us will actually fill these out as we play the game normally. Now, there's a whole host of data mined items, including really neat things like Warden Armor, and this Void Light Shield that certainly does get me thinking about the lore, and if it's some sort of hint about something. And hey, while we're talking about the post, why not check out today's sponsor? Squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming. They are the easiest way for you to build your web presence quickly. And if you want to stand out, you have got to check them out. 2023 will be a massive year for what I'm doing here, and I know I want to hire people. I know there's a bunch of goals that I have. And part of achieving those is going to entail looking professional. I mean, I don't even have a corporate website that I can link people or brands to. So that's my next challenge, but with Squarespace, I know it will be simple. I mean, hell, here's linusmediagroup.com. It's a Squarespace site. We're almost a small version of LTT, but for World of Warcraft, so it's nice to know that Squarespace will even fit their needs as a larger organization for this kind of thing. And really, me and my crew, we're here to make videos for you. So Squarespace's incredibly intuitive editor, it lets somebody like me get the task done, instead of having to go through the time-consuming and very expensive process of getting something very custom-made from scratch. It is such a value add to what I do. So whether you're perhaps on my side as a business, or perhaps you're an individual and you want a kick-ass portfolio that'll help you win clients or impress prospective employers, or maybe you're someone who wants to spin up an e-commerce thing or a membership side hustle, Squarespace has got you covered. Hit up squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming for a free trial where you can build your site and then send it live with 10% off an annual plan with code Bellular Gaming. Right, solo shuffle, but even if you're not a PvPer, definitely listen up because there's a policy change that could matter to a lot of us. So, solo shuffle does have some changes. There's a more clear warning about the penalties of being a leaver, and in matches with levers, rating will be calculated per round, so that should help. Your MMR, for matchmaking purposes, is actually displayed on the scoreboard, giving you a better visibility into the sorts of players that you're actually playing against. And then most importantly, people who excessively leave matches can have their accounts actioned on for exploiting game mechanics to the detriment of the game environment. So yes, basically, if somebody decides to be a leaver and troll a whole bunch of matches, and that's a pattern of behavior, so they're disrupting other people's game experience quite a lot over time, then they can be suspended or banned. Now, if Blizzard is willing to do that here, then surely the same principle should apply to other parts of the game. I would think specifically Mythic Plus, where one person can just brick a key out of spite and flat out grief people, so that not only do they waste the time in that dungeon, but because their key will deplete, they then have to go and do another dungeon to upgrade their key again. So I've got to wonder if Blizzard are content to establish this here, what about other aspects of the game? And also, will they have the actual resources to enforce this? I'm not sure, but I think that's all pretty good. And a final PvP note, War Mode can now be toggled when in Valdrakken, so very handy. Okay, the Revival Catalyst. It's been renamed for some reason and arrives on patch day. It's over in Tierhold and it comes with a weekly quest. You do the weekly quest, you earn a charge. And when you earn a charge, that will be for every character on your account, which is really good. So essentially, do it in your main, your ults also get a charge, you don't have to worry. You can hold up to 6 charges at once, and unlike the Creation Catalyst of Shadowlands, no additional currency is needed beyond having a charge. So back then, we had to farm up some Cosmic Flux in order to, to use the Catalyst. There is no such equivalent here, meaning it's a lot more alt-friendly. Now, this quest is just completed by doing seasonal content, which means dungeons, raid bosses, events like the Soup and the Obsidian Citadel, and also Primal Invasion rares, which is really good because it means that the more solo-oriented people who just want to do things in the world, they can actually progress through this and earn themselves that tier appearance. All Season 1 gear is eligible, but that does not include crafted gear. So you can use Mythic Plus gear, Raid gear, PvP Conquest gear, Epic War Mode gear, and Epic Primal Storm gear. That's the 385 Primal Storm stuff, which I think is overall pretty good. All right, it's a good path for those people. And versus the prior equivalent of the Sandworn gear in Zereth Mortis, I think it's a lot more prompt and, you can just get it a bit faster. So overall, I think this is pretty good. It's definitely a little bit late in its addition. I think it should have been there a few weeks earlier, but that you will at least be able to rapidly get your alts. Some tier, I think, is really, really nice. And also, if you've deleted or vendored Season 1 gear because you thought you wouldn't need it, Blizzard actually did highlight their item restoration service, so you can use that to get those pieces back. Next, the Storm's Fury event. This is not particularly talked about, but it is a new world content feature. So, it happens every 5 hours at the Primalist Future, accessible via the Temporal Conflux portal in Thaldraszus. Rewards for this include Essence of the Storm, which is its new currency, which then you can exchange for 385 rings, trinkets and necks, a Chasing Storm toy, a loot cache that does actually have a Storm Sigil in it, the Skyskin Hornstrider mount, and Time Lost Vorquin pet. Now, that loot cache containing Storm Sigils is actually decently important. Those are the items that you actually use to purchase that 385 Primal Storm gear that is eligible for the Revival Catalyst. Right now, you can only get so much of that per week, so between the actual, seemingly weekly world quest for this Primalist Future, and then what you will get if you just purchase that cache from the NPC, then yeah, you'll just have more ways of getting that gear. Now, those caches can also just contain Dragon Idol's supplies, gold, and a chance of getting a Primalist-themed cosmetic item. The feature is unlocked via a quest that starts in Valdrakken that leads you to Sora Dormi, which I always think is interesting, her being back in this expansion. She is Nosdormu's mate, who, back in Mists of Pandaria, had a rather grim end be teased, because when using the hourglass that we powered up with the traitorous Kairos Dormu, we end up getting a vision of her death with it implicated that Kairos had something to do about it. Now obviously Kairos was killed at the start of Warlords of Draenor, but I've got to wonder, with her coming back, could they be slowly building up to something? I certainly wonder. As for the event, 4 portals spawn into the Primalist Future Zone, plus an elemental boss. You're going to have to disable all of the portals by killing the mobs, capturing the portals, almost like it's a PvP objective, and then holding the portals from waves of mobs. Once all of the portals are secure, the central boss will have his shield despawn, and he can be attacked. Now, do all that while managing the freezing mechanic by just using the heat sources that are there, and also getting protection from the cold via the new accessories that you can purchase, and yeah, you'll win. The Trial of Style, it is seeing updates with a host of new weapons being available. This is mostly old stuff that just hadn't been available. Quite a lot of these look really, really cool though. Another nice thing is that they're adding a bunch of boots and belts, which may seem random, but they're actually there to fill out older tier sets that did not have matching visual appearance pieces. Now, we've also got some new themes for the trial, which are Shadowlands, Gothic Gala, Catwalk, Profession Expression, Bronze Clockwork, Going Green, Blue Skies, Crimson Creations, and Black Magic. So overall, neat stuff. It's nice to see this actually be updated, though I certainly wish that it was available just a bit more often. Nvidia Reflex then, so they didn't talk about this in the patch notes, but it is coming to World of Warcraft, as is a in-house developed version that will be usable on non-Nvidia cards. To be honest with you, I do have to doubt that this will matter a lot, but it is nice to have, I suppose. Essentially, it's a bunch of optimizations through the whole, basically, the whole chain that is connected to, like, input latency. That's through, like, driver optimizations and that kind of thing, with there also being additional tools that developers can implement, which seemingly Blizzard have here. Overall, it's just to reduce your input lag, so nothing to do with your internet connection, purely stuff on your machine. This is available if you've got a 2000 or beyond series Nvidia card. If so, then open up the Nvidia overlay, click in the gear, find HUD layout, then performance, and then turn on the Reflex analyzer. This basically is an addition to the Nvidia, like its little performance analyzer thing, and it'll give you a breakdown of your latency. So if you bring that up and then toggle the Reflex settings, you'll be able to see whether it helps you out or not. Rares then. These actually ended up being a bit of a surprise hit at the start of the expansion, which means it's nice that Blizzard are actually adding in some nice little updates here. First up, a bunch of new rares have been added to the elite areas of Nokudun Hold, Umbu, Cobalt Assembly, Primalist Future, and Tierhold. Now these rares drop up to 385 gear, which is right up there with what the community's been calling super rares that were discovered in the first week of the game's launch. So overall, pretty handy for getting the character started. 385 is just hey, if you've got questing gear, then that stuff's going to be awesome to have. Now then, other rares that used to follow the 2 per 2 hour schedule now follow a 1 every 30 minute schedule. So that's much better, and also they have got more health. That's of course so that basically people can have longer to get to them. Often you would find out that a rare respawn, but by the time you arrive there, it's already long gone. So, nice changes. Transmog then is getting a lot of love this time. First up, and this is a bit of a surprise, but it seems that you can obtain the mythic Sanctum of Domination appearances using the legendary base items from Shadowlands, which shouldn't be overly expensive, unless you're using Cloth, because seemingly Cloth doesn't use the mythic visual. This is very odd, but it is mostly good. Rough as Sanctum of Domination was, those mythic pieces seriously looked fantastic, so I think being able to get those will be pretty exciting for people. Next then, one of the big ones, white and grey gear is now BOE and can be transmogged. This opens up a whole new market and a host of pretty amazing options, especially for the people who prefer more simple looks. And in line with this, starter gear from WoW's past is now available from the appropriate shops in Stormwind and Orgrimmar. Then a nice bonus that we didn't anticipate is that, well, there's a bunch of old items, right? And they actually didn't have an armor type. They were thus ineligible for transmog, and they've now been changed to be cosmetic, so you'll be able to wear those. Credit to the absolute legend and developer of the great add-on Narcissus, Peter Yu, who pointed this one out on Twitter, and definitely check out his work. Okay, those aren't the only restrictions being lifted though, because now most items that used to require a profession other than engineering no longer have that requirement. Those that do now only require engineering skill 1 in that expansion skill line, which means it will be exceedingly easy, like you literally just have to go to the vendor. And then the Gnomish and Goblin engineering restrictions are also gone for your transmogs. Then we've got what's, I think, low-key a massive feature for people, and that is pole arms from Shadowlands and Dragonflight have been adjusted to sit lower on your back. Good. Now, next, I would like to have polearm animations that are not really bad, but point here is they will no longer look absurd. They used to sit so high in your character's back that for transmog reasons or purposes, they just kind of looked ridiculous. So this is much better. Blizzard are going to do this to other expansions polearms, but that's just going to happen as time rolls on. Next then, some old but missed recipes are back. As an example, you can get the heavy Scorpid gear patterns from Blackrock Orcs in the Burning Steppes. So yeah, if you've been missing your heavy Scorpid gear transmog, then now you can have it. More importantly though, and this is actually great for loads of people, new recipes for Warlords of Draenor crafted armor sets have been added, and this is fairly big news. So these were removed per Blizzard as a side effect of Shadowlands development. Now, at the time that felt pretty strange. Now though, 2 and a bit years later, they are back. I mean, just look at these. I think they're brilliant, especially the plate one. People love the plate one. And also with this, there's a bunch of really great looking weapons as well. I think they're fantastic for people who want a sort of, you know, simple faction fitting, but like HD and still quite chunky sort of looking set. So I think they're quite nice. Now the recipes are sold in Ashran and in your garrison, and to purchase them, you will need these secret tomes of whatever your profession is. These are profession specific, and they do come from your old profession daily craft, which is Warlords of Draenor stuff, because yeah, Blizzard were pretty big in the daily crafts back then. Finally, you're going to be able to apply enchantment illusions to artifact weapons, which will of course grant them a good bit more customization. The Mage Tower, it is back, hopefully forever. So Blizzard temporarily removed this because I assume of Shadowland scaling, but now they've got it working again, and hopefully it'll be like that for good. I'm certainly excited to hop back in here now that we just have, I think generally speaking, better, more interesting classes. I just hope that they're able to maintain the old difficulty. Anyway, with this, you'll be able to earn tier recolors from a really, really nice set of tier gear. So that looks fantastic. Also, the Fell Werebear Druid form, and then the Soaring Spell Tome mount for completing all of them. Really great stuff. I think that'll be a lot of content for me, especially because, like quite a few people, I've got a new main in this expansion. Class changes then. We do have an entire upcoming video on the state of classes and class changes. The TLDR I'll give you is Blizzard is doing a great job with prompt design iteration, not just tuning. I will leave the class talk for now though, because we are going to be doing a full, more proper deep dive in just a few days, so you can look forward to that. UI time then. All right, XP bars, equipment durability, bags, and the micro menu can now be adjusted in the edit mode. It's not quite perfect. I mean, fading options and stuff aren't really there, and some things are not scalable, like the XP bar, though at least bags and the micro menu are scalable. So overall, I think add-ons can still do this better, but this was absolutely vital to be there in the actual official edit mode. Now, one really nice thing with edit mode is that you can use arrow keys to adjust element placement now, which is a really big improvement. That being said, I would implore Blizzard, please add coordinates to this whole system, just so we can be precise. It would be dead handy. Then some dragon riding tweaks. These are kind of interesting. So there's landscape darkening and a focal circle that have been added. You can use these in an either or fashion, and they're both meant to reduce in motion sickness. Same also goes for these new options they've added to remove dragon riding's visual effects that just may worsen accessibility. I quite like how they look, but I don't get vertigo or anything, so I mean, yeah, lucky for me, but not for everybody. So good to see that change. Professions then. So if you've wanted things like knowledge catch-up, then unfortunately you're not going to see that. The changes are welcome, but they're not humongous. So what is happening is that the later specialization unlocks are easier. So professions with 4 specs will unlock their final 2 specs at skill levels 60 and 75, and 3 spec professions will be unlocking their final spec at level 75. I think Blizzard's reasoning is quite clear here. It's turned out that getting skill points is hard, perhaps harder than intended, because there's not exactly an abundance of work orders that everyone can readily fulfill. And on that, Blizzard are actually changing the limit of work orders you can fulfill, at least public ones, to 4, down from 20. Essentially, they have a problem right now, okay, where work orders are actually being done through the system, but the problem is they are snapped up so quickly that it just kind of looks like there's just none to do. Now, I would also add in here that you cannot guarantee quality via those work orders, the public ones, and that does mean that, I mean, that's especially rough in a situation where, say, inspiration, that basically crafting crit is relied upon to get the target quality. That definitely is a pain point. That makes me not want to use the public work order system and instead find somebody in trade chat. But again, if I'm finding somebody in trade chat, then I think there's going to be a bias towards the people who are already ahead of the curve. Those people are also the ones who can just readily do all those work orders. So it's just ended up in a situation where I think crafting skill points and knowledge are just not as readily gainable as perhaps Blizzard intended. So these are nice tweaks, but by no means is the work done. And really, that is it. Overall, it is not the biggest patch in the world, but it is really nice to know that the public test realm for patch 10.0.7 is actually going to kick off shortly after this patch arrives. And while not a feature of patch 10.05, it is a feature of Dragonflight that we're just getting quite a lot more patches and a PTR cycle that essentially seems to almost necessitate that whenever there's new stuff in the game, new stuff in the PTR is just on the horizon, which will help to solve a major issue Shadowlands had, which was just massive dead spells, right? Of just absolutely nothing happening. And if there's no buzz about the game, it's easier for people to forget about the game and wander away. So I think this will be quite healthy for World of Warcraft. And certainly when we look at, say, the trading post feature, that's going to be there for years and years and years, giving people something to do every month. So while it's not the most massive upfront feature, it, I think, is just going to be one of those low-key sleeper successes over a long period of time. Now, if you're curious about what is in the horizon, a bit out of scope for this video, but I will leave you with what to expect in 10.07, which will be on PTR soon. That is the Forbidden Reaches content. There's going to be a new leg of the narrative campaign set there, as well as a bunch of repeatable world content. In addition to that, Blizzard will be updating some of the in-game holidays, which, again, I think is a good move for the game's long-term health. And then also, Orc and Human Heritage Armor will be added to World of Warcraft. So I suppose if you wanted to do some last-minute prep, maybe ensuring you get like your reputation up with Stormwind and Orgrimmar, or maybe getting some of that Primal Storm gear if you want to start using the Revival Catalyst, those are perhaps the things you could think about doing just over the day or two before the patch comes out. Okay. That's it for me. I will see you in-game on the 24th of January for this patch. I hope you find things interesting. I hope this video helped you out. With that, I'll see you next time.